Hey there, this is Ill Factor. You know, one of the most important things you can do when producing your music is becoming familiar with the stock plugins that's available for you in whichever DAW you choose to make your music in. So, in this video, I'm going to share with you my top 7 Ableton Live stock plugins that I use on all the projects that I'm working on. So let's dive right in. Now, the first plugin I want to mention is the auto filter. This is a great sounding filter, and I actually like using this one more than some of the third-party filter plugins that are out there. It's clean, sounds great, and it's very versatile. And so, besides just filtering out the frequencies that you don't want to hear, whether it's just the low pass or the high pass, there's some great modulation stuff that you can use. And I actually do this to add some more life to certain elements in a project. So let me go ahead and play this project, and I'll show you how I use the auto filter to add some movement and life to certain tracks.
Do it all the way, the rest of every day.
So let me go and solo this. This is the keys. And instead of just filtering out the frequencies I don't want, we can turn up the LFO amount to give some movement, and I'll sync it up to the project. So we have that pulsating vibe, which is really cool, and this will give some more movement.
Do it all the way, the rest of every day.
And you can also change the shape of the LFO, so the square wave will give you a nice just on and off signal.
Do it all.
Nice and choppy. You can go the different forms of the triangle, sawtooth. And you can automate all the parameters here, which is really cool. But also, along with that modulation, you can actually quantize this. What the section here is in the bottom, and this will actually quantize the filter modulation in the filter. So, and it's set to the sync of the project.
I love you. We just made the same mistakes. I didn't want it to end this way. I wanna be standing right beside you.
You can also change the circuit type of the filter, which is really cool. They've just added this in their recent version of Ableton Live. So you can actually give some nice saturation within the filter itself.
Do it all the way.
So the auto filter is, once again, one of my favorite filters to use, hands down, and I use it on every project that I'm working on. So the next plugin I'd like to feature is EQ8. Now, EQ8 is a powerful EQ plugin, and basically you're going to be using EQs and other dynamic plugins throughout every project you work on. So the EQ8, what makes this really a powerful tool, especially that comes stock with Ableton Live, is that you get a great visualization of the spectrum that you're working on. So you get to analyze the spectrum. You can see the spectrum there, but you can also head into the headphone mode and solo out and finally comb through the spectrum to find any problematic frequencies. You could boost or cut any frequencies that you just don't like. But sometimes using the headphone mode makes it really easy to hunt for those. So this will just solo out just the frequency band that you've selected. And you can hear the difference when you sharpen the Q. And then you could boost or cut depending on what you find. They also give you the ability to do left and right signals and mid and side within there. You can also go ahead and change the high pass and low pass slope by just a medium slope, and then you can do a really sharp slope as well. So this is a powerful EQ. I use it all the time on a lot of the tracks that I'm working on within my projects. So EQ8 is definitely a must use when working in Ableton Live. Now, plugin number 3 that comes equipped with Ableton Live is the Overdrive. I love this simple plugin. It's a great way to just add angst and bite to any element for that matter. I usually use it on drums or some synth leads, and even sometimes just places directly on some vocals to get some real angst brought across, and you know, if I'm trying to get that mood with my vocals. So this is a great way to add some bite. Now the first thing to notice is that in this Overdrive, you can decide what actually gets distorted. So with this little frequency band, I can just distort the mid-range or the low end or the high end, or you can just do all across the board by just raising the Q up here. You have your drive, how much drive you're adding, and the tone, how bright or how dull the Overdrive output would be. So let's bypass this and solo this drum track here. So here's a kick. It's a sampled kick. And adding the Overdrive will give some bite. So we can go a little down with the drive. And we could just dull that out. And once again, I could just overdrive the low end, the mid. So I'll just get the mid. And there you go. Or just brighten that up. Now this will help it stick out in the mix. So I'll play it without the Overdrive on. And now let's go ahead and turn the Overdrive on. Off. And let's turn it back on. A little bit more of this. So it's a great way to just give bite to especially any drums or anything like that and help it just kind of cut right through in the mix. So I love using the Overdrive. All right, so the next plugin I love using in all my projects would be the Beat Repeat. Believe it or not, this is a really cool, fun plugin that comes stock with Ableton Live that adds a lot of life, whether I'm putting it on vocals or certain elements in the track. But the Beat Repeat is really cool because what it does is it's basically automating a stutter effect. And so I'll go ahead and put it right on the vocals, and we'll solo the vocal. So it's adding all those repeated little things. And so the way I would like to use this is instead of having it mix, and basically where you're hearing both the signal that's going through the Beat Repeat and the repeated stutters, I usually put it on insert. And then that way the original drive vocal or whatever signal is going through it will stop, and all you hear are the stutters. So for instance, so let's go ahead and I'll play around with the grid or the overall timing, and you could do some cool pitch down, so you can have maybe like a whole octave pitch down, and that would only affect the actual stutters. You can also use the gate mode, which will only allow you to hear stutters, not even the drive signal. So a way you would use the gate mode is you would duplicate the track or put it on aux. There's many different ways to accomplish this, but just duplicate the track and have one set on gate. That way, if you're going to export it for somebody to mix or give it to somebody else, you can actually export just a stutter track alone and balance between the two. But for right now, let's leave it on the insert. You can also use the filter that comes with the Beat Repeat to just filter out the stutter and allow that to be affected. And automate all that. And what I like to do is actually just map this out. So I'll leave the repeat on, and what I'll typically do is go ahead and map the Beat Repeat bypass button to maybe a key or a MIDI device. In this case, let's go ahead and map this to a keystroke. So I'll hit Command K and just tap, let's say, number 1 on my number key, and that would be it. Now, the moment I hit 1, it will trigger that. And so I like to do that so that I have full control of what to repeat and when to repeat it. So let's go ahead and play it. So the Beat Repeat is a fun plugin that comes stock with Ableton Live, and which I like to use whether on vocals and drums to give it a new drum pattern and some sporadic changes with the drums so it doesn't feel like the same 4-bar loop over and over again. So experiment with it and see how you can utilize that in your next project. Plugin number 5 would be Ableton Live's stock compressor. Now this is a great all-around basic compressor that does exactly what it needs to do, and it uses barely any latency. So instead of using VST or any third-party plugins, I would just do a lot of the majority of compression throughout my projects using the Ableton Live compressor, because it doesn't take up that much latency and it does exactly what it needs to do. And it's very straightforward and easy to use. Your ratio, your attack, your release, you can even set it to auto so that the compressor will automatically detect when to release. But there's different modes to view this, and I actually like this mode here. It actually gives you a good visualization of what the compressor is doing. We can play this, and you'll get to see that the waveform, once it passes that threshold, then begins to allow the compressor to work. You can see what it's actually doing. So it's pretty cool to use. You're drawing wet to actually add some parallel compression. You can actually determine how much compression overall will be applied. One thing to keep in mind is that the makeup gain is usually always on when you use this compressor. And this is going to automatically make up the gain that you're reducing. So I tend to just have this off, and I kind of make up the gain myself by just using the output volume here. And sidechain is just really easy to use here with this compressor. You basically just hit the expander window and choose sidechain, enable it, and then choose where you're getting the sidechain from. So let's say I wanted the kick from the drums to sidechain this loop. Well, I would choose my drum rack and just choose the element within that drum rack, such as the kick. And now the kick is just sidechaining this loop. So it's really simple. You can determine, the dry and wet as well for the sidechain. So very easy, simple compressor, pretty straightforward. Pretty much using this on all of my projects. Plugin number 6 would have to be Ableton Live's Saturator. Just like the Overdrive in Giving Some Bite, Saturator is a plugin I widely use on a lot of elements in my projects. It does exactly that. It's adding saturation. And adding saturation to things can really help just give some width, bite, and overall body in the mix. So what I tend to do is just give some drive until I crank the drive till I find a good sweet spot with that sound. I'll do exactly that with the same loop we're working on. And then what I'll do is actually dial the output back. So if I'm going, cranking 9 dB on the drive, I'll probably just push back a little bit on the output. Comes with an onboard limiter, so I can hit the soft clip, so it just stays right there. We're not getting a lot of the dynamics that just pierce through. And it also has different forms of saturation, so you can get kind of analog warmth, or you can get really crazy and dirty. So we'll go through a couple of these. Medium curve is pretty cool. You see how it starts to get a lot more edgier. We'll go here all the way down to the wave shaper, which allows you to actually, you can expand this a little bit and determine just how much the saturation will be affecting the signal. Going back to the analog clip, you can adjust the bass to determine, more or less the strength of that saturator. And determine what frequency is the saturator going to be focusing on. So all around, really great tool. I'll put the bass back to 0. Probably dial back the drive. And this is without the saturator. So it's a great tool to give some extra punch and grit to whether it's going to be your drums, bass, any other element for that matter. But saturator is a definite thing that comes with Ableton Live that I love using on a lot of my projects. All right, last and not least, plugin number 7 of my top favorite plugins to use in Ableton Live is the utility plugin. Very simple plugin and sometimes overlooked, but I use this pretty much on every single track in all my projects because I do most of my automation for my volume changes using the gain knob instead of using the actual fader of that track. I kind of like to do that because whether I'm using Surface controller or anything like that, but this is a lot easier. That way, if I wanted to raise the overall volume of that track by a couple dB, I won't actually have to go in there and adjust any automation that I'm doing. So I would use the gain to automate all of my vocals or anything for that matter and adjust it there instead of always having to go back and adjust the automation if I wanted to make a change in volume. So let me give an example. So here we have, let's go to the drums. All right. So I'll go on this track here, and let's put in a utility plugin at the end. And we're going to right click on that gain, and we're going to hit show automation. And there we have the automation for the drums, the volume. So let's just say for one section here, I want the volume to dip. That way it's changing the volume automation, but if I just wanted to raise the volume overall by 1 or 2 decibels, I can still do that with the fader on the channel. Utility is also great to do mutes. I use that instead of the speaker on and off. You can also use it to widen up a signal by opening up the stereo width. You can check the phasing left and right. And you can also use this to create mono mixes too. This is very helpful. By bringing the stereo width all the way down to 0, you can just go ahead and drag that over to your master fader. And that's going to give you the ability to just listen to the mix in mono, which can be a really tremendous help when it comes to mixing and getting the balance right. So there you have it. Those are my top 7 Ableton Live stock plugins that I use pretty much on all of my projects. Let me know in the comment section below if this was helpful or what kind of videos you'd like me to do in the near future. Be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with the videos that I'll be doing from here on out. Also, if you're looking for more resources or just want to actually get some one-on-one coaching from me or learn how you can take your next step forward with your music production, just go ahead and click the link below in the description box. I have a free gift for you for watching this video. It's just my gift for you. And so just go ahead, click the link below. That'll take you to my site. And there's a bunch of ways that I can help you move forward with your music. Take care.